Hey guys, welcome back to a new video. Today I'm actually going to be telling a life story. Now this story is 100% real. It's one of my favorite life stories that I have, and I'm only 24 years old, so I don't have a huge amount of stories, but out of the ones I do have, this one is definitely my favorite. So just recently, back in August, I moved out of my apartment in Seattle and moved down to Las Vegas. But while I was in Seattle, one of my favorite pastimes was going to bars and jamming out to some awesome punk bands. Now here's the thing, I'm a huge pop punk kid. I fucking love pop punk. It's always been my favorite. It's still going to be my favorite. The problem is though, is that at least in Seattle, the scene for pop punk is not that big. So there's a very small amount of bars or venues that will actually take pop punk bands in. And one of those venues was this little known punk bar called the Kraken. It was this little 500 to 800 square foot punk bar that like fit maybe 200 people, maybe. But it was a really chill atmosphere for punks to hang out at, and that was definitely one of my favorite places to go to on the weekends. Now this story starts at work. When I opened up my phone one day and checked my Instagram, and on Instagram I followed this account that promoted Seattle punk bands in the area, and I came across a brand new post that they were promoting at the Kraken, and it was a bill that had a couple other bands, including my favorite pop punk band in Seattle, Goodbye Viking. Now of course I was excited. My favorite pop punk band in Seattle was coming to my favorite punk bar in Seattle. Now just as a disclaimer for the rest of this video, you're gonna hear me say "here's the thing" a lot, and I mean shit, I don't mean to freak anybody out, but here's the thing. Goodbye Viking was on the same bill opening up for a band called Mess. Now hearing a name like Mess immediately tells you that is definitely not a pop punk band. But I'll be honest, I really didn't think anything of it because there have been plenty of other non-pop punk bands at the Kraken, and the atmosphere has never really gotten too crazy. And I mean shit, that place's dining room is only like 300 square feet. So then you kind of think to yourself, what could possibly go wrong? And just to set up even more exposition, one of the things that people will tell you before you go to shows is you should always research the bands that are going to be there, because the band really forms the audience, and if you're going to a show like Knocked Loose, you're probably going to get knocked loose. But it was the Kraken. I didn't think anything of it because, like I said, it's always been just like small town bands that nobody knows, like maybe 50 people show up. And even when I got there that night, I didn't even see any indication that I may potentially be in danger. Now, I'm gonna go ahead and set up my routine for you guys. If you've never been to a punk bar or you've never seen a punk show, one of the common things that I've always done at least is in between bands setting up and breaking down, I always like to go outside to get fresh air because I'm a partier. If music is good, I'm gonna start moving. And if it's really good, then I'm gonna be super out of breath and I'm gonna need some water. So usually in between shows, I like to go outside and just hang out for 10 minutes while the next band sets up, and then I come back in and start partying again. But now click, here's the thing. I come back in after a couple of minutes of being outside, and suddenly there's like 300 more people that just showed up. Nobody knows how they got there, no scientific explanation of how they just magically appeared, but suddenly I'm finding myself swimming through a sea of people in like a tiny box, essentially. Now for me, it doesn't matter if it's a small local band or a huge band like Deftones or System of a Down. I'm gonna do everything in my power to get up to the front row as close to the stage as possible because that's just what I love to do. So there I am, sailing the 7 seas in the Kraken on my little boats that I call my 2 humble arms. Now eventually I make it to the front, and I took a glance around. Before this band started playing, I started to realize 2 things. One, there's a lot of Mexican people all of a sudden that were not there before, and it's also unusual for there to be Mexicans this far north in the United States. This is Seattle, you gotta remember. But the second thing was, these aren't just normal Mexican dudes. These guys have face tattoos. I'm dead serious. Every single one of those dudes looked like they were from prison, and I'm like 90% sure I spotted a few dudes that had some teardrop tattoos on their face. And the only thing I could think about when recalling this story is like, what a fucking painting that would be. Like imagine that as a painting. I'm like a little 5'4" feminine white kid walking around just crammed into a tiny room with a bunch of like Mexican gang members. But then something started to happen. Within this ocean, a giant whirlpool opened up, and I didn't realize it until the very last second when the band began to play that I was actually standing in the middle of an MS13 mosh pit. And for the record, that was the most insane mosh pit I've ever been in my entire life. I didn't get stabbed or shot or anything, but it was definitely terrifying because I weigh like 110 pounds and I'm being tossed around like a fucking salad by these like 300-pound Mexican gang members with face tattoos and ginormous arms. Now, it wasn't until after the show that I found out that Mess is actually a Mexican band. they're straight up from the motherland. And that explains where all the gang members came from. It's literally their entourage. No, but regardless of that, I had a lot of fun. It was definitely one of the most memorable punk experiences that I've ever had. And if you want to hear more stories like this one, let me know in the comments. Be sure to subscribe, and I hope you guys have an amazing day.